Who are these people?
More surveillance, and censorship, by our favorite friends, the FBI. You know, so that's always nice. FBI, open up! We got. I have some bit from the Gray Zone. No, Glenn Greenwald. On this as well. So that should be fun. But essentially, the FBI colluded with Ukraine to censor lawful social media speech. A House report says so. I actually got this from Eyewitness News in Albany. This is Jackson Walker over at their national desk. But we'll start with Glenn first, who kind of lays out the beginning of this. So let me go here and here and here. You can find this on Rumble, as you can find us on Rumble. You know, we're over there if you want to check us out.
Just to show you how nefarious this is, there's breaking news from today. It's a House Judiciary report. They are investigating the weaponization of the FBI, which is what that Congress is supposed to do. It's the first real investigation into the U.S. security state since the Church Committee in the mid-1970s that uncovered all kinds of abuses of the FBI infiltrating political groups, monitoring political dissidents and the like on both the left and the right. And here's a new report. There you see the title on the screen. Just out today, the FBI's collaboration with a compromised Ukrainian intelligence agency to censor American speech. Here's what the report says, quote, on February 15, 2023, as part of its investigation into the federal government's role in censoring lawful speech on social media platforms. Let's say that again. What this investigation is, it's an investigation into the federal government's role in censoring lawful speech on social media platforms. The Committee on the Judiciary issued a subpoena to Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, and Alphabet, the parent company of Google and YouTube. Documents obtained in response to those subpoenas revealed that the FBI, on behalf of a compromised Ukrainian intelligence entity, requested and in some cases directed the world's largest social media platforms to censor Americans engaging in constitutionally protected speech online. The committee's investigation has revealed that the FBI, the federal law enforcement agency responsible for disrupting foreign malign influence, facilitated censorship requests to American social media companies on behalf of a Ukrainian intelligence agency infiltrated by Russian-aligned actors. Regardless of its intended purpose in endorsing the SBU's request, the FBI had no legal justification for facilitating the censorship of Americans' protected speech on social media. The FBI and SBU, the Ukrainian agency, sent Meta massive spreadsheets containing thousands of accounts to remove, including authentic American accounts.
Well, what do you think so far, Care Bear?
I mean, we've already seen that happening. Like, shout out to Feeney. Like, I remember she got knocked off of Twitter for what she say?
Something about, you know, unaliving someone, pretty much.
Like, and that insignificant that she got kicked off Twitter for that. So if she got kicked off for saying something politically standing, you know, like you can imagine like how much more they're gonna. I mean, we've already beginning to see that, you know, like especially with our channel, how our channel is heavily suppressed. But I mean, this just kind of gives more confirmation to things that we've been. I think especially
I still love how they throw in that this thing was infiltrated by
Russian scum.
You know, Russian scum got in here too, so it's their fault. It's still the Russians' fault. You know, like even though we were colluding with the SBU, which was a Ukrainian organization, to censor you, an American. So yeah, so let's get into it. The FBI in February colluded with the Security Service of Ukraine, the SBU, to censor lawful speech of American citizens on U.S. social media platforms, according to a House Republican report. The 27-page document released Tuesday by the U.S. House of Reps details known attempts by the FBI to censor and remove thousands of American social media accounts through 2023 with the goal of counteracting supposed Russian social media disinformation. Accounts targeted for removal, some of which belong to American journalists, were first identified by the Russian-infiltrated SBU before being presented to the FBI. The FBI then made requests to Meta, Google, and other social media companies that the accounts in question be removed from their sites, according to internal FBI emails included in the report. Collin, do you remember me bringing a video of Joe Rogan talking to Mark Zuckerberg, talking about the Hunter Biden laptop stuff, being FBI saying, no, don't cover that, right? Yes. So now they're just doing that for Ukrainians. So Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Google all received account removal requests. One such account targeted by the SBU was at USA Peruski, the official verified Russian language Instagram account of the U.S. State Department. Okay? Like, it's our stuff. Literally our stuff. Neither the FBI nor the SBU provided an explanation as to why the account was targeted. Okay? The new information highlights the FBI's unconstitutional role in enabling the SBU's censorship regime and raises grave concern about the FBI's credibility, reliability, and competence as the nation's premier law enforcement organization. A press release for the report on the House website reads, "The House found that the FBI concealed the fact that the targeted accounts belong to Americans, therefore violating the First Amendment." Okay, so I have links to this article in the description below, as always. So they do have the links to the actual full report there. If you literally want, it's 26 pages, the actual report. So it's actually not bad to kind of skim through. But here's Glenn taking on some of that for us. So we'll see what he says.
That's what the Twitter files was. That's why corporate media instructed everyone to ignore the Twitter files, called it a nothing burger. Because this is the dirty secret of establishment power, that the internet is being increasingly controlled and censored. If you go back and read the literature in the mid-1990s about the reason people were excited about the internet and its advent, they viewed it as a liberatory technology, as something that would emancipate individuals from the need to rely on centralized corporate and state control to communicate, to organize. It would allow individuals freedom to disseminate views without having to rely on corporations or state power to do so. It had the potential to be the most empowering technological innovation in history. That's what its proponents were heralding it as being. And instead, it has been degraded into its exact opposite. By allowing the US government to turn it into a tool of mass surveillance, it became the greatest tool of coercion and monitoring in human history, and now it is one of the most closed information systems and one of the most potent propaganda systems in the world, under the control of the US security state and the US government, exercising that power through big tech, that has the ability to ban all dissent and all dissidents, to make them disappear. And that's what happens. And the more that happens, the more a prison gets created in the mind. That's how real despotism works. There's a prelude, an introduction to 1984 that George Orwell wrote that ended up being banned. I believe it was to 1984. It might have been to his essay about Catalonia. We'll check on that. But the essay didn't get published because the point that Orwell made was too threatening to the West right after World War II. What he was essentially saying was, we're taught that despotism means this blunt use of force. That if you criticize the government, death squads in black costumes show up at your house, point guns at your head, haul you off to a gulag, put you in prison. That is a form of despotism. But the much more effective form of control is to so propagandize the public that dissent disappears in people's minds. The prison exists in people's minds. So that you don't need to punish dissent because there is no dissent, or there's so little dissent that it's easily marginalized. And you've just turned the population into such conformists that they believe everything the government says. That is a much more effective form of despotism. It doesn't create backlash. It creates the illusion of freedom. And that's what the internet is designed to do, to create the illusion that you have freedom and you have choice, when in reality, everybody knows that there's a tiny little range of freedom in which they can function, and everything that falls outside the line, no matter who you are. Even if you're a heir to one of America's most storied and powerful and beloved political families like RFK Jr. If you step outside that line, set by the U.S. government in collaboration with big tech, you will be silenced and censored and disappeared.
Thoughts? Yep.
Well, I mean, again, going back to my last story in the previous segment when we cut it out, you know, it just this was just kind of fascinating to see. Just as I said, I saw a lot of Twitter profiles that were hyper focused on this crime bill and just crime in DC, and that's all that they were talking
for safety.
About. It's like, or in the guise
safety is number one priority.
Yeah,
number
so
one
it's just
priority.
the idea, and I think, and I don't think we talk about this enough on the left, but the idea, like, and I just have to wonder, like, these bot farms that, you know, who's to say that they're not government, you know, controlled to kind of monitor what people are saying, how how people might be interacting, you know, with them, and ultimately who they can determine to kind of kick off or just kind of keep, you know, a side eye on, you know, just as far as, you know, what they tweet or their overall content on social media. Like, I was heavily suppressed on, I think it was last year, if not a year and a half ago. Like, I was heavily, like, I wasn't getting, I think at that point I hit like 2,000 followers, and then there was a certain number that I just kind of stayed at.
Partially involved in this story, partially due to our relationship with Tara, who is on Ukrainian kill lists, you know, as are many of the people we talk to and follow. So, you know, we're probably directly censored by this organization through the SBU, I imagine.
Right, but I'm talking about, this was before we even started INF.
Yes.
You know, that I was like, you know, like, I would tweet and a lot of my tweets were not necessarily going out, or I was losing like followers more than I was growing them. It was just very strange. But again, like, you guys have seen my content. I don't think it's really anything that salacious or anything that would argue that, you know, you have to monitor. But if Twitter is able to kind of knock me for that, imagine what with the government's help, or like having that involvement of what they can do to anybody, you know, for something in terms of, I don't know, let's say regarding this upcoming election.
Yep.
You know, or anything regarding Russia, Ukraine. So it's,
here is the press release. Why did I really? No, here. So today, the House Judiciary Committee and the Select Subcommittee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government released a report titled "The FBI's Collaboration with Compromised Ukrainian Intelligence Agency to Censor American Speech." Based on a subset of subpoenaed documents, the report details how the Federal Bureau of Investigation colluded with the Security Service of Ukraine, an agency widely known to be infiltrated by Russian-aligned forces. By routinely sending social media platform spreadsheets and other documents containing thousands of accounts to take down. In doing so, the FBI and SBU flagged authentic American accounts for removal, including a verified U.S. State Department account and those belonging to American journalists. The report also exposes how the FBI ordered Facebook and Instagram legal cover to remove the SBU's flagged accounts. The new information highlights the FBI's unconstitutional role in enabling the SBU's censorship regime and raises grave concern about the FBI's credibility, reliability, and competence as the nation's premier law enforcement organization. The coordination between the FBI, SBU, and American social media companies is substantial, and the full extent of the FBI's involvement with the SBU remains the subject of an ongoing investigation. You can read the full report here, and I have those links in the article in the description below. So, what does this sound like to you, Collin? Like, we got I mean, this is the White House and this Republican committee saying, what about the FBI? And
Right.
what do you think the solution to that should be? Anyone can take a guess in the chat, you know, at least the way I feel about it, but a little bit more from Glenn. So on what's actually in the...
On March 1st, 2022, week after the Russian invasion, FBI Special Agent Kobnet sent an email to a Meta employee with the subject, quote, additional
And he's pulling this info from the actual investigation that got put out, those 26 pages, right?
information accounts. Copying agents Kellett and Chan, Agent Kobnitz wrote, quote, I have a few more Instagram and Facebook accounts that, according to the SBU, that's the Ukrainian intelligence agency, spread Russian disinformation. For your review and action as deemed appropriate. According to his email signature, Agent Kobnitz was then serving as the, quote, assistant leading attaché for Ukraine and Belarus. Agent Kobnitz attached 2 spreadsheets to his email to Meta. One spreadsheet contained a catalog with the timestamp, text, and URL for 15,865 individual items of content on Instagram, including post stories and reels. The other spreadsheet contained a detailed registry of 5,165 Facebook accounts, ostensibly suspected of, quote, spreading Russian disinformation. Meta suggested establishing a, quote, 24/7 channel to respond to the Ukrainian agency's requests. Although the SBU's list contained American accounts, neither the FBI nor Meta appeared to raise concerns about the provenance of the SBU's disinformation registries. Instead, the FBI demonstrated a willingness to support and implement the Ukrainians' calls to take down certain accounts, even though the request included US-based accounts.
So that's the kind of stuff that's happening, you know, full, what is it, 24/7 hotline. Pretty much, they got that red phone right on the table, bro. You know, here, can you deal with these accounts for us? Right? So here we go. On February 15th, as part of its investigation on the federal, I pulled this directly from the investigation on the federal government's role in censoring lawful speech and social media platforms, the Committee on the Judiciary issued a subpoena to Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, and Alphabet, the parent company of Google and YouTube. Documents obtained in response to those subpoenas revealed that the FBI, on behalf of a compromised Ukrainian intelligence entity, requested and in some cases directed the world's largest social media platforms to censor Americans engaging in constitutionally protected speech online, which I've not heard of that used frequently. Constitutionally protected online speech. When you heard that in a while, Colin? Usually it's only from, of course, it's the Republicans, right?
Right.
The committee's investigation was revealed that the FBI, responsible for disrupting foreign malign influence, okay, that's supposedly one of their jobs, right, facilitated censorship requests to American social media companies on behalf of a Ukrainian intelligence agency, and they talk about infiltrated by Russian aligned actors. Yeah, but it wasn't always. You should probably check on that. In so doing, the FBI violated the First Amendment rights of Americans and potentially undermined our national security. What are you going to do about it, Republicans? Anything? Anything at all? Like, you know, in light of well-documented incidents of the, and it cuts off because we don't need the rest of it. So here is the known, this is March of 2022, right? And look, they got their whole calendar filled out of requests, right? On all these dates. Look at all that. Like, dude, this has been happening for a while. You know? Like, so the FBI facilitated censorship requests to American social media companies on behalf of the Ukrainian intelligence agency, violated the First Amendment, right? We just read that. So to conclude its report, the House resolved to continue its investigation to determine the extent of the FBI's censorship. So we'll let Glenn actually close this out from a real person's perspective and not eyewitness news. So anything you have to say, Colin, before we do that?
No.
Yep. Same old
It's
bullshit.
just like it's same old bullshit. Water is wet, the sky is blue. We've been new.
Yeah. We done been there, you know.
Yeah.
So
So it just gets more complicated, and that's all.
And I think, again, what we have to understand is that this is a war on dissent. This is a war to cleanse the internet of anyone who questions U.S. orthodoxy and to ensure that the internet is banned from being what it was supposed to be, a source of free information and free expression, into what really is the most potent and most inescapable propaganda weapon ever to be developed. It's aimed right at people's brains. And the idea is to cleanse it of dissent so that the only information to which people are exposed is information that American power centers want them to think and want them to have. And that is why I really do regard as the overarching cause the preservation of the few remaining places on the internet devoted to free speech. Remember, Elon Musk turned into public enemy number one. He was beloved by the global public. He was the person who was going to give us electric cars and save the planet from climate catastrophe and get us to Mars. And someone who has been a success story, and everything he touched overnight, he turned into public enemy number one because he bought Twitter based on the promise to just allow a little bit more free speech, take away that weapon from them. That's how valuable the censorship regime is to them. And now you have the entire US security state creating vast tentacles to ensure that this happens. There are a few remaining places on the internet that genuinely allow free speech. Obviously, Rumble is one of them. RFK Jr. has put his channel on Rumble because that's one of the few places where he can go where he knows he won't be censored. These are like outposts of dissent. And obviously, power centers are waging war on them. The French government, already Rumble is not available in France because France demanded that Rumble remove RT from its platform. The French government just reached over to this American corporation and said, we demand you obey our censorship order and take off this news agency that we dislike and want silence. And when Rumble said no, they were forced to remove themselves from France pending a lawsuit. Those attacks are going to come more and more and more aimed at any platform that is devoted to free speech. And that's the reason these platforms are so worth fighting for, because that is, for now, until we get this kind of decentralized protocol that Jack Dorsey believes is the ultimate solution to decentralize the internet, to put protocols in the hands of every person and not have it be centralized. And until that happens, the only outpost for free speech will be sites like Rumble or any place devoted to protecting free speech. And if those are lost, we will live in a world dominated by the censorship industry. And you don't have to worry if you are a good liberal, which is why good liberals aren't worried. In fact, they're happy about this because those are never the people targeted with censorship. It's only real dissidents, people who dislike establishment orthodoxies and who are opposed to establishment power, who are threatened by this, who are the targets of it. And that's how you can identify who they are.
Well,
I mean, anyone who knows what's happening on YouTube, well, just social media in general, this shouldn't be a shock to anybody. But I think it's just the idea of even just here having to be careful of what we say.
Yep.
In fear of getting strikes, or worse yet, getting our channel straight up to moved or like fully demonetized, not being able to make revenue of your content, like any form of dissent, as Glenn was saying, is being targeted. And that's not freedom. That's not the values that, our forefathers, had when it came to like free speech,
For sure.
Now granted, like certain free speech can be harmful, but
Yep.
I think in our case, and especially on the left, it's the idea of we're tired of seeing the status quo because we're affected by it. We're seeing the complacency of how people, just respond to our politicians while the world is burning. And we are kind of screaming, help. We need to do things in another way. And that is an unacceptable message to me.
I'm Michael Jordan. Stop it. Get some help.
So
Yeah.
it's frustrating and kind of worrisome, because I do think about this given, my position, as a teacher, and I do think about this all the time. And we had, shout out to Crab, because I remember having this conversation with him, just having, my full name, having my full name, listed on Twitter and given kind of what I do in the space, I think about that in terms of will this affect me, for future employment if I decide to leave, or, because I have hours of content now, posted on YouTube and on Twitter for the world to see. And some of my takes are spicy, so, and that may not be acceptable in, certain platforms or, things that I do. But, but it's just the idea of this surveillance, like we talked about in the story before, just more surveillance in terms of your everyday life, how the police respond to you. And we're kind of seeing this here. Like through actions within the FBI of how they could potentially target you if you say something that is counter to what they want you to talk about.
Yep.
It sucks. It really
Sure.
does suck because, especially, in our case, we're trying to
Well,
have people
it's
open
crazy that
their
it's not.
mind to thinking beyond what we've been force fed.
How much money have we sent to Ukraine now?
Oh, God, I can't even.
Like that, and then you're like the FBI is not even like, it's not censorship just for our government at this point. It's now censorship on behalf of some foreign power that we then spend millions and trillion. Like, the conflicts of interest involved in all of this is incredible,
Right.
So I hope they figure it out, like, if we could just get rid of some of those folks, that'd be nice. Just fucking on out of there. Just yeet them.